We're still working to learn more about the terror attacks in Brussels. Authorities in Belgium are still looking for suspects. The attack killed 31 people and hurt 270 others. Earlier, we had reports that police arrested one of the attackers, but investigators said they do not have that man in custody. Police say they are still looking for several other people with suspected ties to the attack. ISIS has claimed responsibility for it. Meanwhile, a broadcaster in Belgium identified the two suicide bombers who blew themselves up during the attack on the airport. A police source says they are Khalid and Brahim al-Bakrawi. They're the two men on the security camera picture wearing black and pushing luggage carts. The broadcaster says police knew who the brothers were because of their links to organized crime, but not for acts of terror. Police say Khalid used a false name to rent a house in Belgium. They raided that house last week. Fingerprints in the apartment led to the arrest of Salah Abdeslam. He's one of the men accused of planning the attacks in Paris in November. The U.S. State Department just updated us on Americans injured in the attack. Officials now say about a dozen were hurt. We also know more about some of the Americans who were in the airport at the time. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints identified the bombing victims as 66-year-old Richard Norby, 20-year-old Joseph Empey, and 19-year-old Mason Wells. Each of them are expected to recover, but they suffered burns, cuts, and other serious injuries from the explosion. Wells was in France during the series of attacks in Paris last November, and before that, he was even closer to another major terrorist attack. He and his parents narrowly escaped the Boston Marathon bombing 3 years ago.
I think two's enough for a lifetime now. I'm just dumbfounded, to be honest. And all I can hope is that the Boston experience gave Mason some peace, because I know that he was in the turmoil right there when the blast happened, and it was pretty chaotic from what I heard.
The U.S. Air Force confirmed the attacks injured an Air Force officer and several members of his family. Officials didn't release their names, but they say they are expected to survive. NBC reports a couple from Kentucky is still missing. Several other Americans were in the airport during the attacks. Students from Quinnipiac University say they were near the bombs when they exploded. The students spent some time in Brussels. They were about to head back to Ireland, where they were studying abroad. After the second bomb went off, the women stayed together and ran out of the airport. A driver took them to the U.S. Embassy. The girls called their parents to tell them what happened.
My wife answered the phone, and she started screaming.
It was huge. It was like a fire explosion. It shook the floor. The ceiling started falling.
The students say they don't know how long they'll stay in Brussels or how they'll be able to return to Ireland. The airport in Brussels is closed today and tomorrow. Meanwhile, back here in the U.S., government officials say there's no specific credible threat, but that's not stopping Homeland Security. The agency says it's stepped up security at airports all around the country, along with rail and transit stations. Even here in Hampton Roads, we saw more patrols at local airports. Security officials are looking to see if they need more screening of passengers coming from Belgium. The country is currently one of 38 nations where Americans do not require a visa to visit. People all over the world are paying tribute to the victims of the attacks. One man in California is showing his support in the sand. Bill Pavlaka started this sandcastle Saturday. But when he heard the news of the attacks, he decided to dedicate his work to the victims. He etched the message, "We love you, Brussels, stand strong," in the castle's base. Bill says it's his way of standing with Belgium against terror and violence.
Show some solidarity with, people who were being terrorized and want to stand strong against the terrorists. Do what we do, go out to your ball game, go out to dinner. Don't let them win.
After the attacks in Paris, Bill made the Eiffel Tower out of sand. He hopes this sculpture stands as long as possible to give people a chance to see it.